Okay, we're back. We're going to talk about jobs another time. We're going to move on to friendships that you've had.
Friendship. Oh,
So,
right.
good friends that you've had from childhood to today. It doesn't have to be all of them, just some of your best friends that you've ever had, a little bit about them, how you became friends, and just any interesting stories that you've got.
Okay, I can give you that straight away. Uh, my very first friend was Jeffrey Wiseman,
Hmm.
and that was when he was in the same class as me, just slightly older. I was born in May. I think he was a month or two earlier. I'm not too sure about that now. In the same class. And he was quite educated because he came from a naval family. I think he had three brothers, and his father. Oh, they at one time were all naval officers,
Hmm.
including his father. Yeah, I think it was lieutenant commander. I'll be guessing what rank he was. I can't remember what rings he had on his arm here. But he was quite an educated man, and obviously Royal Navy, and his three sons. And Jeffrey Wiseman went to a private school when he was about 14 and a half to 15. And that's probably when we left company. So that's from the time I started school at Cotton Road when I was um, um, 4 plus so many months. I was close to being 5 years,
Yeah.
but I was a few months short apparently. Anyway, I was very lucky because somebody had helped me to write and to spell and to do very simple sums. That was before I was 5 years old. So I wasn't a clever person. um, so let's sort of take it from when I was at school. So there was Jeffrey Wiseman, and we were bosom friends. If everything was happening, it was Jeffrey Wiseman and me and others, if that's how it fits.
Yep.
And he lived in Glenthorne Road, round the corner from my road, which was Dartmouth Road, and other parts of Portsmouth, which we'll go to in the car later. That was mainly Highgate Road, and I think Vernon Road and possibly Dartmouth Road. It might have also been Chichester Road, but I'll give you all those addresses later, not now. And we'll go and visit them by car, which you said is going to happen.
Hmm.
Okay. And I've just made this new friend now, Tony Lindsay, and he says, "I think you're marvellous, Ken. I'm 77, you're 92, but he said you've got so much." And I said, "Stop praising me. I can't get through the bloody door now. It's so big." Anyway, he laughs. So anyway, Jeffrey Wiseman, up until 14 or 15, and because he was so associated with the Navy, he joined the Naval Cadets at 14 years old.
Yep.
And I, like Royal Air Force, I then joined the Air Training Corps band, who took people in at 15. I was 14 and 2 or 3 months before my birthday. But they took me in, but I couldn't get a uniform to the ATC until I became 15 years old. I then had to go to a school in Portsmouth, which the name won't come to me at the moment, somewhere in the Southsea area, not far away from where we did the recruit training, which was opposite Fratton Station, up some stairs. And the top of the building, one room for the drums and one room for the bugles. And I was in the bugles when, I think I've told you before, probably on there, met Tom Horscroft. And we were friends basically until he died at 91. He went back from hospital and got COVID again or something, or he went to hospital and got COVID, and then he passed away. But in a few years before then, through another friend of mine, George Boulain, who came from one of the Channel Islands, and his family were English or Portsmouth area, and him and his wife moved from there to, him and his sister moved from, or no, wife was it, moved to the Portsmouth area when he was sort of retiring age.
Yep.
And that's when I met him somewhere. That'll come to me later on. And then we were very good friends. Your mum and I, not your mum, your grandmother and I went along to visit the Horsecroft one night, and when Lily came to the door, she said, "Oh, it's Marilyn and Ken," in a very haughty manner, and she sort of lost friendship with your mother for some reason or other. If you asked your grandmother, your mother, your grandmother about Lillian Horsecroft, that was her married name, because it was Sproles before then, and she was second in the big family, I think. About 9. Almost as, no, not 9, about 7, I think. 7 of them. So Tom Horsecroft and I were friends basically from the time I went to school at something before 5 years old until around about 14 or 15, when he went to a private school, which name I can remember later, and so he was coming up to 15 then, and then I joined the ATC, met Tom Horsecroft. Tom Horsecroft and I became very firm friends because Geoffrey Wiseman suddenly got the difference of opinion of life. How and why that happened, I don't know. But he and I almost, if you like, failed our friendship. We didn't see each other anymore. Whereas before we never went anywhere. Swimming, dancing, whatever.
Yeah.
And,
You got any funny stories about George?
Well, only unfortunate thing about it, there was one Saturday, I said, let's go and watch that film on at the Tivoli, which was just along Copner Road from us, past the school, and the thing was about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I think I'd seen it once before, but somebody was going that we knew and was paying and come down and unlocked the back door. And we went into the Tivoli cinema. We didn't pay.
Yeah.
So I was, if you like, a thief, named a thief, a real thief. I pinched apples and pears, but I never pinched anything else. But I pinched that entry into the Tivoli. Only ever did that once. And whoever it was opened the door. And as we went in, we got the door very quietly, locked it again. It was a escape door from the Tivoli, which was near the gents' toilet, and there was a little alleyway going up to that back door from the gents' toilet, and so we went into the gents' toilet, and we each had a pee each, just to make it, and then we went back into the cinema, which wasn't closed because it was a Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and there was mainly kids in there, and they were causing hullabaloo, and the people that ran the cinema kept coming down and telling them to shut up. And I think they were doing that when we sort of crawled in. Well, they didn't know that we had, where you been, toilet, which we did. That was absolute truth. We didn't tell a lie to them.
No.
But we didn't say we lifted well, we didn't lift the bar, but this friend lifted the bar, and I think there was either 2 or 3 of us nipped into the Tivoli cinema and saw that film about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When we were queuing up to go in, no, that was a different time. A different time at the same cinema with Geoffrey. No, Geoffrey Wiseman wasn't there because he was on the back of a motorbike. There was 3 or 4 of us, our little gang, from anyway, from where we lived, Glenthorne Road, and we saw this motorbike drive past. Inside a very large sidecar was his mum. His father used to drive a motorbike.
Yep.
And on the back behind him, with a great big bandage round his head, was Jeffrey Wiseman. And apparently, we found out later that he only had one eye because he was over playing near the golf course across Burfield's Road Gate to Langston Harbour area, and there was a golf course there, and I think he was picking up golf balls, which he put in his pocket and obviously took home and played with them, and he got shot in the eye by an air pistol, or an air rifle.
Yeah.
Anyway, it pierced his eye, and he was blind, and he only ever had one eye. But he went to this private school, and his name won't come at the moment. He went to this private school, which was in a church in Southsea here. Chivers. Was it? I think it was called Chivers. Anyway, he passed out with very high marks and became headmaster of a school in either Portsmouth or Southsea. And but of course, the friendship finished then, and I was a friend with Tom Horsford.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned before, I went cycling on the promenade in Portsmouth, not along the promenade, but Southsea seafront. Heard this noise, it was a band. Followed the noise, it was on Southsea Common, or whatever they called it. And I listened, cycled towards them, and they stopped playing, put their instruments down, sat down on the ground, because they were probably a marching exercise. They were all in uniform, because there was a parade coming off, and they had a smoke. All underage, I suppose. I don't know, 14, 15, because you couldn't smoke till you were 16. And anyway, they all had a smoke, and I asked them, how about becoming a band member? Is it easy? What, do you want to play the drums or you want to play the bugle? Oh, I said, I love Harry James. I'd love to play the bugle. I wish I knew how. Oh, we'll teach you. Oh, do you? Yeah. You get a uniform just like we've got. Oh, really? And we practice every Monday night and every Friday night at 7 o'clock in this unused 2 halls, which I'll explain to you. We walk out of Frank Station, cross the road, walk about 10 yards, and then turn left up the little alleyway, up the stairs, and there are the 2 rooms, and you'll hear all the drums and the bugles playing. So this was on a Sunday morning. I was in South Parade, if you wish, and on the Monday night I said to Mum, I think there's a band starting up. I might like to join it. Can I just go and find out what it's all about, Mum? Yeah, it's all right, son. I said, but they don't start until 7. I said, and I think they finish at 9. That's all right. Make sure you get on the next bus and get home here to Copner, where you live, in Dartmouth Road, by just after that time. I said, okay, Mum. Which is what I did. And then from then on, every Monday and Friday night, that's where I was. In Devonshire Avenue, I think it runs by the side of Fratton Station.
Yeah.
And we were friends, as I say, till he passed away in Portsmouth Hospital. Because he'd gone in and had COVID and had something else, and he got COVID again. So he was taken back in, but it didn't last. But apparently before he died, apparently one of his relatives, whether it was a grandchild or not, which I think it was by as far as I can remember, he put his hands together as though to say, I'm coming to join my wife and you, God. And he passed away. But he remembered to say he was on a journey to go and see and meet up with his wife, who had died a few years before.
Yep.
But he was 91. His birthday, along with your grandmother's birthday and my birthday, Tom Horscroft, 2nd of May, your grandmother, the 16th of May, your grandfather, the 18th of May. So we're all May people, and Lillian was the outsider. I'm not sure whether she was born June, July, or even a bit earlier, but very close to Tom and I in age.
Yeah.
So really, in my whole life, I met up with other people and had friendships, but nothing was quite like those two, which lasted that period of years. Is that enough for that, or do you want
Yeah.
more?
I was going to say, how did you actually meet Tom then?
Well, when I went and walked up these stairs on that first Monday night after hearing the band on the Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah. If you go and stand next to Tom Horscroft, that's Tom Horscroft on the end of the line. If you stand to the left of him, he'll show you how to. So I walked up to Tom, then I stood by him, and then, oh, here's a bugle, and that'll be your bugle, so you can take it home. You're gonna? I said, yeah, I'm certainly going to join this band. And he said, okay. Is that right, Tom? He said, yeah, he'll be here without fail. He'll probably be worse than me for attendances. Otherwise, I'll go, no, if I was dying, I'd go.
Yeah.
And so I stood next to him and he said, right, can you spit? What's that, pardon? Can you spit? I can picture it now. That's as clear as a bell. Standing next to him with his line of bugle people. There were two lines. This line of bugle people, right at the end on the left-hand side, and there was the rest of the hall, and there was the exit door there. That's how well I remember it. And I can remember his face. And he says, yeah, he says, you get your lips like this. He said, it's called the embouchure, for playing a French word for the shape of your lips when you play a bit. So I said, how's that? Then he said, well, you imagine you just had a chocolate. Do you smoke? I said, no. He said, you will. He said, so what you do is to get this piece of tobacco or maybe a bit of sweet paper stuck to the sweet and it come loose in your mouth, and it was on your tongue. You spit it off like that, because it will be on the end of your tongue by then. Your teeth would push it along to the end of your tongue. He said, try it. Oh, I said, it's as easy as that. He said, no, there's a bit more to it than that, but that's the prime working of it. It's called the embouchure. Okay. And that's what happened. And so we just became, I said, oh, thanks very much. And he said, there's something else happening which might help you, Ken. Because I could see it, we could talk easily to each other, no problem, as though we'd known each other for a long time, which of course is what took place, because I knew him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that was the only real deep friend I had, apart from, so that was right from nearly 5 till 14 or 15, thereabouts. And from that age on, I'm meeting Tom Horscroft, which was just a few weeks or a few days, whatever, at that meeting when they were playing the bugle. And he said, yeah, put it up to your lips. Yeah. Oh, he said you can get more than one note. He said, that's very good. That's very clever. I said, yeah, most people don't even just get the one. Really? Oh. Yeah, but you have to practice, but you've got to put your hand over the top. And he said, all the neighbours have been knocking your mother's door and saying, the bloody noise coming from your house. Sounds like a trumpet or something. And that's how I learned. And then we were just bosom friends. He told me where with. Number 3 was above the door. In the district in Portsmouth. Come out of New Road, turn left, then turn right, and then his little road was there, and he was still living with his mother, of course. And his sister, Betty, had just got married. his name won't come. And I was very good friends with them because we would meet on a Monday or a Friday night, ended up by going to Salisbury Pier because we both loved music. He played the piano and the accordion, a lot better than me on the piano and the accordion, of course.
Yeah.
Because he was a year older. He was born in 30 and I was born in 31. So, and that was the difference in our age, 1 year, all but those days, 2nd to the 18th. So I was 16 days younger and 1 year.
Do you remember the first time you actually played in public?
No, no, because I wouldn't go out with them in public because I didn't have a uniform. So I only played in the band room. But as soon as I got to 15, I was then old enough to join the ATC, which is the joining age. And then I went to a school in the Southsea area. The name won't come, but if I went in all the schools in that area, I think I might just by chance pick the right one that was applicable to him. But he lived, as I say, go up New Road, turn left, turn right, and the little road up there, he lived at number 3 with his mother and Bill Kemp. His father was named William, and his name was William Albert, and his W.A. Horscroft. I think his father were the same initials, so it's possible that the older person than him, but she was getting married or was married to an ex-naval man whose name at the moment, I can picture his face, I can't get his name in my head. And we all got on very well together because often on a Sunday morning, probably from the Saturday when he and I would go to Salisbury Pier to dance and listen to the bands, or go across to the Savoy. It all depends how much money we had in our pockets.
Yeah.
Because the Savoy was very dear on the Saturday night because they used to have bands that played on the radio, or the big sort of swing bands then would come down to either play on a Sunday afternoon in Salisbury Pier or across to the Savoy on a Saturday night. But at Salisbury Pier there were 2 bands. There was the Johnny Lyon band and another band who was the guest band, and Johnny Lyon almost played every Saturday night at Salisbury Pier. And he also owned a shop in Arundel Street, which was the person, Johnny Lyon married the daughter of the milkman, Eddie Hawkins. That was another friend of the gang that lived in the area, Glenthorne Road I told you about. There was Joe Broad, Jeffrey Wiseman, as I mentioned earlier. Vernon Upfield. I might even remember some more names later on.
Yeah.
But I wish the rest of my memory sort of came together better, Mark, to give you the information. I could paint the picture in an attractive voice and way, the way I'm blurting it out at the moment.
Yeah, it's all fine. And then obviously you've got a new friend now.
Yeah, but there's a little hut, which you've seen, have you?
Mm-hmm.
The little hut. That's a smoking hut for people that wanted to smoke outside. That wasn't there when I first came. So between my coming here and then, because I've been here for 12 years, come August, this chap Tony Williams, he goes in there to smoke. he sits one end with his back against that corner, and he's got cushions which he normally hides under the seat of that little building, because no one sort of comes in the gate, walks behind the railings to that little that little building that's made of wood, which whether the owners of the setup there said, right, if you want to smoke outside, because apparently what happened, his room at this same building as here, as you could, Lindsay House, has apparently got about the same amount of rooms as this one, and they were obviously a plot of land that disappeared, job-wise or building-wise, and they knocked it down and built both a block of flats. That one a council owned. This one, of course, is owned by the Church of England Soldiers, Sailors and Airmen's residential business, house, home, which is where I'm in. So I think he's been there for a short while. He is 77 years old. And I had noticed it there, I don't know how long it's been up, but fairly recently, within maybe the last year or two, could have been a bit before, never noticed. Anyway, I just happened to thought, I wonder what's there. So I walked round to have a look, and there was a person there. So I said, good evening. So he said, good evening. Very pleasant, cheerful, chatty, nice to meet you type speaking. I said, yeah. I said, no. I said, how is it you're here? So he said, I come here to smoke. During our conversations, and I go down there when it's not raining or whatever, and he'll do the same, just turn 8 o'clock, because that's one of his smoking times, you see. Because he can't smoke inside that building, like people can't smoke inside this building, not even in the front door, inside the front door.
Yeah.
And they don't like them sit outside and smoke either way. So there's no smoking outside here. But in the back garden, there's a bench with a roofing arrangement in case of rain with an umbrella, and there's an ashtray there, which anybody who smokes can go and sit in there and smoke, but not inside the building. So anyway, I chatted for a brief second. So it's nice. So he said, he either asked me what's your name, or I asked him. Oh. I think he may have said, so who are you? I said, well, I'm Ken Ross. I live in the top floor in ex-Royal Air Force. Oh, right. Oh, he said, I've done several things. If you ever want to come down for a smoke. I said, I don't smoke. I used to. Oh, he said, but you stopped, yeah. Well, that's good for you. Yeah, you can come down, look at me and I can look at you. We can maybe have a chat or not, doesn't matter. But you're welcome to come and have a chat. But as I say, I'm your junior by 15 years. So I said, I've got to go another 15 years and I get to the same age as you. And to be quite honest, I'll be quite surprised if I did. He said, I think you're remarkable. The way you talk, the way you've been speaking here for a few minutes with me. I said, oh, I'll come down one day and I'll ask you about you and your life. And I said, you can ask me about me and my life. I said, at the moment, I'll go back in. He says, every evening, weather being fine, because if it rains, you get wet. There's no front to this little building. There's like the two ends and the little roof and the backing. And if it's blowing the wrong way, you'll get soaked.
Yeah. So
anyway, I went down and met Tony, and he told me things that he had done in his lifetime. Right from the age, 7 children. He said, oh, nearly as bad as you, Ken. You had 9. He says, but that was my fault. He said, you only had 4 children, didn't you? Did you mention that? I said, that's correct. And we pretty much talked about our lives and what we've done, at what time, what age we were. And as I was talking to him at various times, like I was there yesterday, when it's fine weather, and if it's fine tonight, at just gone 7 o'clock,
Yeah.
I'll think about getting myself sorted out. And about 10 to or 5 to at the latest, I'll get some clothes, put them on, get my walking sticks and walk down there. Evening, Tony. Evening, Ken. How are you today? Not so bad, not so good, whatever. He'll sit that end nearest Lindsay House, and I'll sit this end to the right side of him. He'll pass me to, well, he's already got my cushions out. They're not mine, they were supplied by him. And somebody said once, we've seen you sitting there with you sort of got a new friend, haven't you? Yeah. I said, I think I'm his friend as well. I'm not sure yet, but I'll find out. This is him in the beginning, you see.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, we chit and chat. He said, I was in the army for a little bit, but I won't tell you that story. Because he was only like a boy soldier. He never got to the age of 18 and went to the men's service, or else he would have been eligible for one of these, apparently.
Yeah.
So he says. I said, well, that's a shame. I said, yeah. I said, we could have been in the same block. He said, well, it doesn't matter, Ken. He said, we meet here every evening. We get on well. We can talk about, you name it. And we probably covered it. I know a lot about you, and you now know a lot about me. And what happened in my life and what didn't happen.
Excellent.
So really, that is basically, I had one friend from, well, there was Kenny Restall. His name was Kenny as well. Kenny Restall. I forget the name of his road, middle of Mayhall Road, I think it was called. He lived. And I was sort of friends with him because he lived fairly close before I went to Copton Road School as a youngster of coming up to 5, or 5, say. And then, obviously, in the same class was Jeffrey Wiseman, who I think joined a few days before I did. So I think his birthday was a little bit earlier than mine. But I went there to that school before I was old enough, and so he went even earlier, because he was obviously some time younger than me.
Yeah.
He could have been an April birth. I really can't remember, Mark. So that was basically my friends. So that was from, we say 5 years till say 15, and for 15 to 91 when he passed away. Knew a few people in the Air Force, of course. Lou Bosio is a Gibraltarian. Oh. Ginger. He was another tall, red-headed person, about the same height as me when I first joined the RAF, in the same billet. Oh, his name won't come. I don't know, I was only saying it the other day. But he had red hair like me, and they called out Ginger, and we both turned round. So they said, right, we'll stop this. I think it was this Gibraltarian who said, you're Ginger, that's whose name won't come in the moment, and Ken Ross, you're Bloodnut.
Yep.
And somehow or other, one of them or somebody close in that sort of environment at about that time met up in the Air Force, and they said, oh, I think I know that chap. So he said, are you Bloodnut Ross? I said, that's my nickname, yeah. Who are you? So-and-so, so-and-so. And somebody from Portsmouth. I think he said, I'm not too sure, Copton Road School. So at Copton Road School, he obviously knew me. Oh, I could have had another friend. I'll tell you this very quick story. I've only not mentioned it to maybe 1 or 2 people. I've told that Tony. Funny enough, I was only telling him last night that was I going to say? Bugger. I forgot what I was going to tell you. I was describing the action. When we were, no, it's gone. Whatever it was I was going to tell you about, it's completely gone.
No.
And that's unfortunately what happens to me, which I feel very unhappy with, really get angry.
That's okay.
But
I'm sure it'll
another
come
time,
back. You can tell it another time.
yeah, it's something that may have been interest to those who want to hear me ramble on and on.
Yeah. Just trying to think what the story was you were telling Tony.
Sorry?
You said you were telling Tony last night, so just have a think what you were telling him, and maybe we can pick up on it next time.
Yeah, I'm sure. If you jog my memory and talk about it.
Another friend, you said.
Yeah, well, there was Jeffrey Wiseman I told you about, but that was basically I was not quite 5, or just on 5, and it's just the same. A couple of road school. And then from then on, I had sort of lots of I made friends with. But in the RAF, that sort of flying through my mind. I made friends with everybody. Because I've never, I suppose, being a chatterbox, I've never had a failure at saying, at more or less saying to somebody without using the words, "How do you do? My name is Ken Ross," but in the RAF they used to call me Bloodnut. You can use whatever name you like. You said, "I'll call you Ken if we don't mind." I don't like the word Bloodnut. Okay. So wherever I went, and I made a friend of somebody, whether it was when I was at Thorney Island station there, and I was going to try and form a band, and I found a very good pianist, excellent pianist. You could look at a sheet of music. Never looked at his hands. Very marvellous he was. Can't think of his name either. So he said, "Oh, have you got some music, Ken?" I said, "Oh, maybe we can get some. We can." He said, "Well, you can bring." I said, "No, I'm not bringing my trumpet along and blowing that in front of all these people here." I said, "You're very good at what you do." I said, "I would like to be in a band because I used to play in the band." I mean, when I was at every RF station I went to had a band. I was supposed to do a station that had a band. There was always a band playing at that station. I don't think I made any really strong band because your grandmother and I were quite happy with our own company, and I mean she knew lots of people in the street and wherever in the shops and stuff. But I never bothered with them for too much. I was just friends at school. I mean, one person I could have been a friend with, and I was telling your mother about it only the other day. I think we moved, because I was stationed at Stafford.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be here for a long time. I was like, yeah. Very seldom, very unlikely for you to get posted. Oh, I see, all right. So he said, whatever your intentions are, he said, maybe you don't want to live in the Marrow Quarter. I said, no. What are the houses like? He said, well, they're all right. Anyway, so I went to a few estate agents, got some addresses, and found out about 7 Moss Pit, which is the major road leading from Stafford, the A449, going to Wolverhampton. That was the main road. It was a straight road all the way through, over the motorway and carry on into, excuse me. So I thought, oh, right, look for a house. So I went to the estate agent. And they said there's a lovely house called Seven Moss Pit. And Moss Pit is part of the road, of the main road, which I can't remember, the A449 anyway, from Stafford to Wolverhampton. So we looked to this house, lovely garden, end of the block of houses. It was 200 feet from front to back. The front of the house was about 400 feet of a nice big grass and a driveway. And there was a garage, a coal shed, and an ordinary shed, built as one big building. It had a massive Victoria plum tree on the lawn just outside the back door, and then the garden stretched right to the bottom, which at that time wasn't fenced off, but it was just a garden. But there was a shed there where it used to keep chickens. So I thought, that's a good idea. We'll have some I'll get some chickens. And you can ask your nan about this or your mum, and she'll tell you about it. I think your mum would tell you the story when the only way that I knew how to kill chickens was to hold their legs and chop their head off. And I think your mum was there one day when I was doing that, and all the blood was everywhere. Well, I chopped this head of this chicken. But the next door neighbour with a family called the Binningtons, that's the story I was going to tell you. The family called Binnington, remember that name? You can give it back to me. Family called Binnington. He was a post office worker and used very, very good at his job apparently. And he used to go and look after post offices that were taking holidays. He would take over and get them sorted out, or if there was an inquiry or something, he would go along with the people concerned. And I can't think of his first name, Mark, but he was there. Anyway, he said to me one day, that's a story I was going to tell you a lot earlier. Can I tell you now?
Yeah.
I can't think of his first name. Anyway, one day he said, coming up to Christmas, and he said, Ken, he said, I know you've got 4 children now, maybe it was 5, somebody coming to stay, whatever. He said, would you like to earn a few bob at Christmas? He said, we're looking for people. He said, I know they're advertising, but he said, I know you, so I can recommend that you go along to have a chat with them. And you get paid and whatever the figure was. And I said, well, that don't seem too bad. So he said, right, so-and-so, I'll make an appointment with the manager who's Mr. X.
Yeah.
Again, no. He said, so-and-so. He said, but here's his phone number. That's his phone number in his office. If you ring him and tell him Sid, David, Fred, Bennington told you to ring him, think you'll be very useful to him. I thought, well, I don't know how you know that. But anyway, okay. This, that and the other. I phoned him. I phoned him and said, oh, I'm Ken Ross. I live next door to Bennington, so-and-so, and he's asked me to give you a telephone call. Oh, yeah, I know, Mr. Ross. What are you doing? I said, well, you name it and I'll try it. Yeah. So he said, well, you work from Monday. I said, you working Saturday? I said, not this Saturday. I think it was a Saturday. Can you come along about somewhere between 9 and 10 o'clock? You tell me what suits you. I said, well, by the time I get in the car and find a parking space, whatever, somewhere about halfway between 9 and 10, well, that'd be wonderful. 9:30 would be ideal. Okay. So I went along, sat down, talked to him. He said, okay, what does he do in the RAF? So I told him equipment, accounting, etc. He said, oh, definitely Christmas. How many, is he talking about months or what? I said, no, the most I'm going to get is to be able to ask for 2 weeks leave, and that would be just a fortnight of Christmas time, whatever. You tell me what date you want me, if you want me. So he said, what do you do? So I said, I'm a stock taking investigator. Oh, right, what does that mean? I explained it to him. He said, okay. I'm pleased to meet you. Can I call you Ken? I said, of course you can. And Bill, Fred, whatever. Pleased to meet you. Okay, yeah. He said, well, we start on so-and-so, but if you could come along here of an afternoon, give me a quick buzz first and say, hey, you're free, and we can have a sort of 10-minute or an half-hour talk, whatever you like. Fine, okay. Which I did. So we arranged the Christmas fortnight. So I applied for leave and I was given leave and started work there. So I went there in the morning of the day I had to start. Oh, that's right. And they phoned me back.
Yeah.
Can you start work at something to 8 on whatever day it was? I was going to guess Saturday, but I'm just guessing March.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went on early in the morning and we chatted away. He went, looked on his desk, obviously he had it ready. He says, how does that grab you? I said, well, that's all right. I said, it's a list, obviously a list of people's names. And I said, there's various columns with the headings at the top and so on, etc. So we had a quick chat about that. So he said, fine. He said, that's what I would like you to do. I said, pardon? He said, that's what I'd like you to do. Come with me. I'd like to show you something. So I stood up, walked along a little passageway. He opened the door. He said, this will be your room. Pardon? What do you mean this will be my room? Well, he said, I want you to sit in there. And I want all the people, and we got a horde of them, coming in different days, different times, so on, etc. I'll run through that very quickly with you now if you're happy to do that. I can't pay you any more than I'm paying those people that are walking the streets. But he said, I'd like two things to happen. I'd like you to come here, and any time you've got free and you've got time, I would like to get you here, and I don't know, he said, maybe hiring you on a weekend basis or a holiday type period of time, if you don't mind doing that, and that's agreeable with your family, especially your wife. I said, where's his buddy gone now? Anyway, he said, can you do that? I said, yeah. So he said, okay, we'll take that into consideration. But he said, over the Christmas period, everybody won't come and report to me what's happening. They come and report to you. And if you think it's an obvious thing that should go further, you can contact me, call me Fred, whatever his bloody name, I can't remember his name.
Cool.
But I could see we got on very well together just by chatting. And he said, I quite like you. He said, and what you're doing is ideal for me to give you this job. Everybody will come in the morning, they're booking to you, you will sign them in, you put them the time of their arrival if you wish, but you haven't got to. But as long as they're here before, I'm not sure if we said 8 o'clock or 8:30, I'd have to guess that. But they would come into work, or they would leave a note on my desk, I have arrived, and put their name down.
Yeah.
And I had the list of all their names down here. They would come in, I would book them in, I would book in their time 8 o'clock, and they were finishing. They've been out all day or whatever, or all morning, but whatever time they came into me, oh, what's your name? Jibby Jobby. All right, Jibby Jobby. So you came in this morning at 8 o'clock, okay, and you're going to leave now at 12:30, okay, and you were working right up until that time, yeah, okay. I'll put that down. Is that the truth? Yes, of course it is. Oh, I'm only asking. So I'll put that there. Being efficient as usual, and I put that down. They would finish the week. And he said, whatever time I finish, I think I had to go back for an extra hour or something to conclude this and work out that they had worked so many hours and minutes, or so to speak. And he paid them out on that. So technically, I was, and that Ken is supposed to be a mind reader or whatever for the job that he was, and all that study he did from television.
Yeah.
Has been at the post office now for over a year, not a movement. He's not been nominated. He said, can I say two things to you, Ken? You live in Stafford, you've got your own house up there next to, and he mentioned the Benningtons. He said, I know exactly where that lies. It's got a long drive. I said, that's right. He said, if you stay in Stafford, will you do me a big favour? Yeah. Before you do anything else, whether this phone number, he said, dig me up wherever I am and phone me and say you're leaving the Royal Air Force on a certain day and I will ask you to come and talk to me. He said, I won't hide a bit about the bush. I like you a lot. I'd like you to be here. I'd like you to work for us. I don't know what position yours will be. Can't discuss that until whatever time comes along. Can or will you do that? I said, yes. I said, but may I say this, Fred, whatever your name is, I would definitely do that. But I got a sneaking suspicion that my wife is like me, Portsmouth born and bred, and will finish with the Royal Air Force, which is, I told him the date, which as you can see is not all that far away. He said, okay. I'd like to hire you as one of my supernumeraries. He said, I can't give an exact title yet, but he said you can prove that by learning all the post office details. He said you learned a bit in the fortnight that you come there, you've been here a fortnight, and whatever that paperwork that you mastered it, you made a couple of suggestions, and I thought they're very good, and I've got it on my list of all to the headings on them that you would put there.
Yeah.
So we got on so well, and he really wanted me. Oh, sorry, Mark.
That's right.
Sorry. And he said, you know, I'd like you to retire ex-Royal Air Force, new post office, old and new. So he said, you'll come here, you got something to take. I'll take you around, I'll show you all the straights and curves in the post office. And then you might choose what direction you would like to take if you want to go further, become into a position, not as a sergeant, he said, but as something else. So I said, all right, thank you very much. So I said, I'm not telling you your job because you're older than I am. I'm just gone 30. I said, is this the right thing for me to do, to come in here and do this? And so almost you said, here's an office and you're in charge of it. And all the part-time workers will come in every morning or afternoon, whatever the time of day is, and they'll book out of an evening when they finished here, if they finished near the post office, and you'll keep a record of everything that takes place with those people on this list. He said, and I'm sure you, I remember he sort of nodded his head and he sort of looked quizzical at me as though, you know, you're a schoolboy and I saw you pinching those apples. I mean, I never mentioned apples to him, of course. And he said, I just sort of think you're that sort of person. And he said, I think we could become good friends, become your boss, and you work for me, and if there's any promotion going, and I think that if you fit in the bill, I will put you straight into it. So I know we've only known each other a fortnight, quite impressed with you, but will you do that for me? Those weren't really his exact words, but that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, Mr. Fred. It wasn't Fred, I can't think of his bloody name. Is that okay with you? I said, absolutely fine. I said, I've got another job for life with another big service. They're all over the country. I said, the heavens could be the finishing place. Not to die, I said, but to be in charge. And he laughed. And he said, yeah, he said, we haven't promoted you yet. I would just mention that would possibly be in my mind because you're not an ordinary postal type person, worker. I said, oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. So he says, but if ever you want a reference, will you do that for me? I said, what's that? Give me a phone call and say, something's happened, you've moved somewhere and you're doing something and you would like a reference. He said, I'm quite taken with you. He said, I think he said, I'm sure, I've been in the Air Force. No, I've been in the post office. I've been in the post office since I was a boy.
Yeah.
So he said, there's not much more I don't know about the post office. He says, there's a few tricks that have been played. And he said, I learned by being with them and heard of them. And they were punished accordingly. He said, I'm not saying the wrong thing to you. I'm not sort of giving you a warning of any shape or kind. He said, I don't think you're that sort of person. Well, I said, if you couldn't trust me, I said, I wouldn't work for you. I said, well, you can find out from all the people that I've been with, you know, in the Royal Air Force, because I was still in the RAF then, I was only about 30 something. So I didn't come in until I was 40, so I had about 10 years to go. I told him this. So he said, I'm willing to wait. I'll still be working for the post office by the time I finish, whether I'll be here. But he said, if you leave Stafford, Ken, if you leave the Air Force, will you do me a big favour? I said, certainly if I can. Will you phone me and saying you're going back to Portsmouth to live, or I'm still in Stafford and I'm looking for a job, one or the other. I said, I think it'll be the first one. But your mum, I mean, not your mum, the children's mum, my children's mum, can talk about the time their dad worked at the post office. Excuse me, worked at the post office.
Yeah. And
that was only after that very first short conversation. And they would sometimes come in during the week and said, you haven't seen our post office, have you? Anyway, I can't remember it now. I remember being taken into the sorting room and seeing them doing the letters where it went through the machine. I said, there it goes. He said, it automatically picks up the postcode for where they're going to be delivered. I said, but yeah, and that directs them into, and he said, they go along, drop down, they go along, drop down. So depending on what's on there, it'll kick it into the right chute, and eventually it'll get to, and that box will be wheeled away, and then they're sorted out into areas and stuff, and put it into bags for the postman to deliver.
Yeah.
Mark, your time is getting on to 5 o'clock. Well,
that's all right. Well, we can stop there if you want.
No, I don't mind. If you've got anything else, you can maybe ask me. That
I feel like it's a good point to stop.
I just feel as though I've let you down.
Not at all.
Because my brain has decided to bloody disappear.
That's all right. It's okay. Well, I think it's a good point to stop, to be fair.
Sorry?
I think it's a good point to stop. And we will carry on next time.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So thanks very much.
But if any time I wander off and start rambling, you've got to say, stop, Grandad.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop there.
You've told me too much about that and not enough about that.
Which
you mentioned very briefly.
It's okay. Hold on. Okay.